Hello everyone, this is CRH Films. Today I'll tell you about the 2004 film The Day After Tomorrow. The movie depicts the horrifying consequences of the melting of ancient ice. Instead of warming, an ice age occurs. Antarctica. A small group of scientists from the USA, led by Jack Hall, are drilling ancient ice to uncover the secrets of Earth's icy layers. The drilling triggers the same effect as a squirrel with a nut in an ice age, creating a massive crack across the research station. Scientists realize that their drilling wouldn't have caused such an effect. They understand that only global warming could lead to such outcomes. Jack leaps for ice samples to support his theory. Later, he presents his findings at a conference on global warming. Jack announces that global warming, followed by a new ice age, is becoming increasingly real. However, world leaders don't take his statements seriously due to the lack of specific dates and consequences. The unstable economy raises more concern among the global elite. After the conference, Jack meets Scottish professor Terry Rapson, an elderly man also researching global warming. The Earth's climate begins to change. Weather catastrophes follow one another: massive hail in Tokyo, prolonged rains, snowfalls in Delhi. This is just the beginning of a global catastrophe. Climate sensors in the ocean record a sudden and sharp temperature drop. The data is sent to Professor Rapson's laboratory. Jack returns home to Washington. He learns that his son Sam failed his math exam. Jack calls his ex-wife to find out the reason for the failure, as he believes his son is a mathematical genius, but the teachers can't recognize his brilliance. His ex-wife asks him to take their son to the airport the next morning. Sam is flying to New York for an Olympiad. Jack agrees but almost forgets about his son due to his work. He literally snatches his son from the hands of a greedy taxi driver. Sam's plane enters a massive thunderstorm cloud. Due to turbulence, the plane starts shaking severely. Astronauts on the ISS observe massive cyclones forming in Earth's atmosphere. Despite the bad weather, Sam and his classmates manage to reach New York. The entire city is gridlocked in traffic. Sam and his classmates get out of the taxi and walk on foot. Sam notices a huge flock of birds flying away. Professor Rapson, analyzing data from ocean buoys, calls Jack. He warns Jack about the impending catastrophe. The cyclone that came from the direction of Japan reached the western coast of the USA, starting with Los Angeles. Huge tornadoes descend upon the city, destroying the Hollywood sign, wrecking the airport, and reducing downtown to ruins. Jack Hall's assistants convene an emergency conference, where it's announced that a powerful Arctic cyclone has been detected over Canada. Temperatures are plummeting rapidly in Siberia, and a destructive typhoon rages in Australia. Scientists conclude that the cataclysms will continue and become stronger with each occurrence. The president cancels all flights due to 2 plane crashes and the events in Los Angeles. Sam and his classmates decide to return home by train, which he tells his father over the phone. However, heavy rains make movement impossible. The streets of New York are flooded or congested. Sam's classmates have to spend the night at a friend's place due to the situation. Jack and his team calculate the further development of natural disasters, yielding bleak results. Earth's climate will change within the next 6 to 8 weeks. Armed with this information, Jack visits the vice president. Jack tries to persuade the official to initiate mass evacuation. However, the vice president doesn't believe the situation is that critical. At the same time, a cold cyclone dominates over Europe. The military evacuates people and members of the royal family. 3 British RAF planes fly into the center of the cyclone. Due to extremely low temperatures, the fuel in the planes freezes. Helicopters crash, and people perish from hypothermia just as they disembark. Sam and his friends watch the news on television. Due to a sudden rise in ocean levels, the coast of Canada gets flooded. The youth try to reach the train station, but the water on the streets is knee-deep, and the rain shows no sign of stopping. Abandoned cars worsen the situation. A massive tidal wave hits New York. It first inundates Liberty Island along with the statue and then the rest of the city. Sam and his friends manage to take shelter in one of the city's libraries, along with a few lucky bystanders who were near the building. Jack and his team receive new data, realizing they were mistaken. They don't have 8 weeks. In the next 24 hours, 3 supercyclones with extremely low temperatures will sweep across the Earth, changing the climate. The first is over Britain, the second over Siberia, and the third is heading towards the USA and Canada. Professor Rapson's station was covered in snow. He and his companions realize that they won't be able to save themselves from the station. In his final phone conversation, he asks Jack to save as many people as he can. In his last moments, the professor and his colleagues share a bottle of whiskey as the generator runs out of fuel. Meanwhile, in the completely flooded New York, Sam, his friends, and other survivors take shelter from the storm on the upper floors of the library, wrapping themselves in whatever they can find. Sam finds a phone and calls his father, letting him know his location. Jack warns his son about the approaching cyclone. To survive, they need to stay indoors and do their best to maintain the temperature. They must hold out as long as possible before help arrives. The water level continues to rise, cutting off the conversation between father and son. A ship carried by the current enters the city and gets stuck between buildings. The rain ends, replaced by snow. Jack gathers the necessary supplies to set out and help his son. Before leaving, he's asked to inform the president and offer his recommendations. It's straightforward: evacuate everyone below a certain meridian to the southern states, preferably Mexico. Those in the northern hemisphere are almost doomed. After the cyclone, the northern part of the world will be covered in ice and snow. It will be a new ice age. The president orders the evacuation of the population to commence. Meanwhile, Jack sets out to help his son with two reliable colleagues. New York is buried under snow, and due to the rapid drop in temperature, all water has turned into ice. People walk, trying to get as far away as possible. Sam tries to convince people to stay in the library, but almost everyone hopes to reach the southern states. Evacuation is underway there, as informed by a girl's brother. Sam, his friends, and a couple of librarians remain. They gather books to burn them, preserving heat until Sam's father arrives to help. One of the students repairs a radio. The news on air is quite grim. Snow in Europe has reached 5 meters. The same fate awaits the USA. Brian says that Sam's father won't be able to reach them. But Sam believes that his dad won't leave him. Meanwhile, evacuated US residents start crossing the border with Mexico on their own. The military closed the border due to an overwhelming influx of people. People break fences, leave their belongings on the highway, and wade across the river. Jack and his companions rush to help. Their vehicle gets stuck in a snowdrift. The rest of the way will have to be covered on foot, like Gandalf and his company, hoping not to freeze to death. Continuous snowfall has completely transformed the city's appearance. It's now unclear whether you're walking on the road or on the glass roof of a shopping center, which is completely covered in snow. The glass can't withstand the weight of loaded sleds and cracks. Falling sleds drag 3 men attached by a rope. The sleds have to be cut, as their weight could have dragged everyone down. The companions secure themselves using an ice axe to rescue their colleague. Frank notices that the glass can't hold their weight and cracks. He cuts the rope, sacrificing himself so that others won't be harmed. During the night, Jack and Jason stop for a rest. Jason takes out 3 flasks, and they honor the memory of their fallen comrade. In the morning, Jason succumbs to the low temperature and loses consciousness. Soon, the President of the USA is evacuated from the semi-buried White House in Washington. Later, in a refugee camp, the Vice President is informed that the President and his entourage disappeared in a snowstorm. According to protocol, after the death of the head of state, his duties are taken over by the Vice President. Meanwhile, in the library, Sam notices that the classmate he likes is feeling unwell. The girl doesn't regain consciousness. With the help of a book, they manage to diagnose her. She has a blood infection due to a cut on her leg. To save her, antibiotics are needed. Sam decides to go to a ship that's conveniently stuck nearby. He improvises something resembling snowshoes and, along with 2 friends, sets out to search for medicine. They find a medical cabinet and take everything they think could help. Then they head to the galley to replenish their supplies. Wolves from a local zoo also visit the ship. The predators sense the scent of prey. They chase the boys all over the ship. However, Sam and his team manage to lure the wolves into one of the cabins. The trio returns to the library just before the cyclone hits. At the same time, Jack is dragging Jason. He notices that the air suddenly clears, and visibility improves. This means they're in the center of the cyclone. A stream of cold air is coming down from the upper layers of the atmosphere. Buildings are immediately covered in ice, and the glass shatters due to the drastic temperature change. Jack jumps into a ventilation shaft, throwing Jason in there as well. In his eyes, he sees the American flag, which is covered in ice within seconds. Jack runs to a stove, He jumped into someone's kitchen, lights a fire, closes the door, and watches as everything is covered in ice. The next day, they head to New York. On the way, they see dozens of human bodies. These are the people who were caught outside during this terrible supercyclone. During the night, the men stop for a rest. Jay asks Jack what will happen to civilization after such climatic changes. Jack reassures his partner. Humanity survived the previous ice age, and it will survive this one too. Astronauts aboard the ISS observe that hurricanes on Earth have subsided, cloud cover is disappearing almost everywhere, and before their eyes lies a mostly lifeless, ice-covered northern hemisphere. The duo reaches New York, transformed after the cyclone. They see frozen ships and the Statue of Liberty completely frozen. They approach the library, which is almost completely hidden under a snowdrift. Scientists descend into the completely frozen and lifeless interior. In one of the rooms with a fireplace, they find a group of survivors, including Sam. The vice president of the USA, now president, receives news of Sam's rescue and addresses the nation. He thanks all citizens for their bravery and the countries that accepted refugees for their generosity. At the same time, a mass evacuation of people begins. Military transport helicopters are flying to New York. Besides Sam and his friends, many survivors remain. They gather on the rooftops of New York skyscrapers to welcome their rescuers.